Hey there, are you grieving the potential loss of a loved one or feeling overwhelmed with the loss of someone you care about? If so, you're in the right place. Lisa Hartung here, and this podcast is designed to guide you through topics surrounding death and dying. We'll dive into multifaceted aspects of grief, offering you a blend of personal stories, expert insights, and practical advice for your grief journey. May this be a safe space for you to learn, listen, and ask questions about your own life and loved ones. So grab your favorite beverage and let's dive in. Hello, friends. How are you today? I am so excited to be with you and to share some fun things that today I wanted to focus on moments, how moments matter, and what that means when your parent or your loved one receives a diagnosis that's terminal. And the moment in time from diagnosis to treatment sometimes takes a while. If you live in a rural area like my mom did, she was diagnosed and she didn't get her first treatment for the first a couple weeks. I would want to say 3 weeks. And so you just kind of sit there waiting for weeks before you actually get treatment, wondering, spiraling, what's going to happen? How am I going to do this? And if you're in it right now, my heart is with you. So I wanted to focus on that this week and to share a little bit about my experience in hopes that it could help you. First off, I want to go over logistics and kind of the tactical things, what you need to do, and then talk about the fun side and how you can really cherish the time with your loved one, and then to have some takeaways of little things that you could do today to make your life easier or better. For new listeners that are just tuning into the show, or maybe you've heard a couple episodes, but you're like, who is this Lisa girl? My name is Lisa Hartung, and I grew up in Maine, and I now live in North Carolina in the United States. I am a mom of 2. I have a 4.5-year-old girl named Maeve and a 1.5-year-old boy named Brody. The reason I got into podcasting is because I lost my mom to pancreatic cancer in 2022. And at that time, pancreatic cancer had a survival rate of, was it 12%? I think it's 13.5 or higher now, but still a dire prognosis sometimes. Mom passed away in 2022, and my experience in caregiving for her, and also looking for resources and what to listen to and what to read, was really challenging. And so I started the podcast to help other people who are also caregiving for their parents and raising their children. So I was caregiving for my mom in the first year of my daughter's life. She never got to meet my son. And so being that dual caregiver while taking care of my mom and raising my newborn, or taking care of my newborn, was such a challenge. And so if you are in it right now, I feel ya. I'd like to call you a Wonder Woman because it can feel really draining sometimes. And so know that you're not alone and you don't have to go through it alone. So logistics, your loved one gets the diagnosis, and maybe the doctor shares a prognosis. Remember, you're not the prognosis, and miracles happen every day. And I always say that there's always hope. And thinking about such a dire diagnosis with looking toward the light was really helpful for me. That's not helpful for everyone. I think some people are automatically like, oh, I'm going to die tomorrow, or oh, they're going to die in 2 weeks. But you can make those 2 weeks really fun, or as fun as they can be, right? And really cherish those moments. So thinking about once you get that diagnosis, what research can you do? Do you know any specialists, or can you look up any specialists in the field? One thing that was really helpful was looking for success stories. So with pancreatic cancer being such a tough disease, it was really helpful for me to listen to, read, and hear about success stories of people who survived stage 4 pancreatic cancer and what alternative ways did they do that. Sometimes when you get to the doctors will say, look, your body isn't responding to chemotherapy, or the radiation didn't help, or the medication that you're on is no longer working. And you can feel like, okay, I have no other options. And I just thought about the saying like let go, let God. And maybe you're not religious at all, but it's that idea of it's really out of your hands. And what you do have under your control in that time is how you want to spend the time together. You're in this time, you're looking for any sort of survival stories or how did people live longer with better lives. One thing that's really important is maybe one doctor says, no, I can't do anything. Get a second or third opinion. Sign up for mailing lists of if there's an association that's championing the illness that your loved one or your loved one has. Sign up for notifications, be part of that community. Is there an online chat bot that you could connect with, or are there support groups that are virtual or in person? Those are all things that are super helpful. One thing that was really helpful also is bringing a notepad and taking notes at each appointment. Sometimes people have recorded what the doctors have said just because you're in such a fog when you're really in it and going through the treatments, and there's so many doctor's appointments and so many logistics. So making sure that you feel like you're able to have some sanity in it all and have the voice recording or just, writing things down. Also assembling a care team. That's not only on the doctor's side. And again, you can have non-traditional specialists and healers that are on your side. I'm the believer of, hey, anything helps. And you can learn something from each different specialist. And my mom was Christian Scientist, so she really wasn't into doctors. And so anything that I could find was helpful. So we went to a nutritionist. We did Reiki. We did acupuncture. We did massage. We did meditation. There are all different types of things, different avenues that you can explore when you're in a pickle, right? And one thing that we ended up doing that was really helpful was you do have a lot of appointments. And so we were like, how can we make these appointments fun? So when mom would go in for chemotherapy, and those of you who have gone through chemotherapy or been a support person for someone going through chemotherapy, it's not fun. And you're like, okay, for a couple days, and then it's like really bad. And once you get in that cycle, okay, I'm going to feel okay for this many days, and I'm going to feel really, really bad for this many days. And hopefully it's not that long. And then I'll come back and I'll feel normal again. So we would schedule fun time, and it would always be like, let's tentatively schedule this. And if you're not feeling well, then we'll change it. But when she would go in for chemotherapy, we would call it Mom's going in for her spa day. And I would come with, for some of them, my dad would go with her for others. And she loved it because she got free snacks. Who doesn't love a free snack? And granted, she had a really hard time eating them, but at least she could, hold them and think about eating the snacks. And then they would give warm blankets. So it was really sweet. One time we lucked out and mom was in her own like private room for chemotherapy. And I got to sit in the chemo chair next to her, but these are like nice recliners that are heated, and they brought the heated blankets in. And my mom was like, could you get one for my daughter? We're at the spa today. And so the people at Alphon Medical Center in Augusta, Maine were just so, so sweet. And they treated us just like the spa ladies. And so we brought magazines, and mom always brought her sketchbook or a little bit of artwork to do while you're sitting, because sometimes you can sit in the chair for a long time. Other people I know love to listen to music or have inspiring playlists so that when you're sitting there, you're thinking about other things instead of all of the chemicals that are going into your body. Those are just some things that were helpful. And then we also had people like our community helping us with meals. So being really upfront with your community of how they could bring meals to you, or if there are any supplies that you need. Once we got mom into hospice, it was wonderful to have like medical aid equipment to help her get up and down, to have a special potty next to the bed so it was easy for her to get up and down. So don't be afraid to ask. And I think also don't be afraid of enrolling in hospice. It is a complete mind shift when we literally spend our entire lives preserving ourselves and our loved ones. And as soon as you enroll in hospice, it's no longer about preserving the life, it's about making the person comfortable. And that is a real challenge. And know that there are so many emotions that come with that, both for the person who's going through that and for the caregivers and family members. But I will say on the other side, hospice was so helpful. My dad and I were trying to do all of the bathing and the like toileting, and having hospice and having a specialist come and help bathe my mom so that she could have her dignity was really, really special. We also had someone come and help organize things. A lot of medication happens and you have to give medication at certain times. And so having a log of that is also really important as you're caregiving. Again, leaning on alternative things. Sometimes communities that are targeted in the personal illness will have events, online classes and things. And so definitely go for that. Therapy is really, really helpful, both for the caregiver and for the individual. I cannot say that enough. Having someone to speak with and talk to that isn't your spouse or a family member, that's a third party ombudsman, is just really helpful. And especially if they are trained in grief or in any sort of trauma, depending on the illness, it's really helpful to have therapy and someone to lean on throughout this time. And knowing that you as a caregiver can you'll need support too, and outside of your caregiving. So how can you fill your cup up, even if it's going out for a walk, seeing the sun for 5 minutes a day, eating a favorite treat. So those are all logistical things to think about. Then I want to talk about adventures. So when my mom got sick, she was always a pretty personal person. She didn't post a ton on Facebook or Instagram, but one of her best friends was caregiving for her elderly mother, who had since passed away. During that journey, her friend would post every week or twice a week of all of the adventures that she and her mom were going on. And my mom just loved that. She thought it was so much fun. And so when she got sick and I was up caring for her, she goes, "You know what, Lisa? Do you think that you could kind of share about our experiences together?" And I was like, "Oh, sure, Mom, whatever you want." And she never told anyone. I don't think she ever told anyone on social media that she had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, because I think admitting that would have been really difficult for her. She was always, again, Christian Scientist, mind over matter. I'm not feeling well right now. I'll feel better later. So those are things like she asked me to document our adventures. And so I said, sure, I'll do that. And so as you are going through this, think about how you can document the fun times that you have together and how can you make them fun. So one of my favorite memories was I took mom to Liberty Graphics. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's a t-shirt company. They screen print on the front and the back of t-shirts. They're usually wild animals or nature scenes. They're just a unique screen printing company that just a lot of Mainers wear these shirts. Mom would love to go, and we would go to like the foundation or the main store that was in Liberty, Maine. We would go to, or I guess you would call it the flagship store. And so we would go to the flagship store and they always had seconds. So it was like maybe the printing was off a little bit and you would get yeah, significant discount. So my mom loved going through all of those and seeing like which ones still looked good and had really cool things on them, both on the front and the back. So she was sick. She knew that she might not be around for Christmas. We never outwardly talked about that, but she went into it saying, I need to get everyone Christmas gifts. So this is in the summer. It's probably it was July because I had summer Fridays at my job. And so I didn't work on Fridays. So we went on Friday in July to this middle of nowhere store, and she could barely even walk. But we got into that store and she picked out a t-shirt for every person in our family. And I think about it, and she had her list of all of the names, and she thought about each person, and then she would go and she would look for that special t-shirt that had just the right thing on it for them. And I thought, gosh, she ran a gift store, a boutique in our town for 38 years. And so she was always thinking about gifts and surprise and delight moments for people. And so to know that she's like essentially on her deathbed and she's still wanting to bring surprise and delight to people in months to come was really sweet. She even wrapped some of them ahead of time and wrote the names on the wrapping paper, which was so so heartfelt. So after we did this, she was just so exhausted. I said, Mom, let's go get a snack. And she loved ice cream. So we went and got ice cream. And she also loved watching birds. And so we drove by this beautiful lake. And she wasn't well enough to get outside, but we sat on the lakeside in the car, eating our ice cream and watching the birds. And it was such a wonderful moment of just mother-daughter time. And I think back and I'm so grateful that I took that time and I listened to what she wanted to do and we did it. Another bucket list item. That's one thing that I would definitely suggest while you're going. You get your adventure list, you get their bucket list, and you try to tick off as much as possible, as much energy that they have, so that you can go and have that time together. Another one of our adventures was Rennie's. So it's a store in Maine that might get discounted items if, there was a large company that maybe there was water damage. And so they needed to get rid of some supplies or things were damaged. Or, oh gosh, growing up, we used to go to Rennie's and we could buy 3 big candy bars for $1. It was really awesome. So they always had a good candy selection. But you can get all sorts of things like homewares and games. And I think now it's much more of more just a retail store where you can get everything. But anyway, one of Mom's bucket list items was to go visit every Rennie's in the state of Maine over her last summer with us together. So I think we got 3 or 4. That was what she had time for, but we made the most of it. At the end of her life, we'd always wanted to go to Paris. So we had set up a Paris cruise, knowing that she wouldn't have a lot of energy. And then we actually had to cancel the cruise because she just wasn't well enough to go on the cruise. After that, we're like, okay, well, what other, if we can't go to Paris? I ended up doing a virtual walkthrough of Monet's house with her because we were going to go to Paris and then Giverny to Monet's garden, which you can go back to episode 1 and listen to how I did bring Mom to Monet's garden, just in a different form. One of the other trips she wanted to do was Niagara Falls. And so to motivate her, when you're sick and you're going through chemo or you're at the end of your life, appetite isn't really a thing. And so, it's so important to get nutrients, get protein into your body so that you'll have the energy to fight off whatever it is your body is ill with. And so we made a little jingle up and I was like, okay, Mom, if you want to go to Niagara Falls, you have to eat 2 crackers. And so Mom just sat there and she's holding on to her crackers. And then she goes, 2 crackers for Niagara Falls. And so we just made that into a little jingle. And every time I was trying to get her to eat something, I was like, 1 cheese for Niagara Falls, 5 ounces for Niagara Falls. She had these protein shake drinks that she had to have, just making it enjoyable. Another adventure we went on was she always wanted to do a puffin tour. Maine has puffins. And so we got our extended family and friends to come with us on this puffin tour. And it was so fun and cool to be out in the water. My mom grew up on the coast and so loved being on boats and at the coastline. And so it was just such a joy to be able to go and see the puffins and experience just a fun family event. As much as you can do with your family in whatever capacity, it really does mean a lot. And then, thinking about, okay, you are the caregiver. There's only so much energy. You might not have summer Fridays, and maybe you're not on FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, or maybe you haven't taken time off of work yet, and you're still juggling and you're trying to do it all. And that can be really, really stressful too. So, some things that were helpful for me was I would wake up early, do a little bit of, I usually tried to do a little bit of exercise before I went to go start my caregiving activities. And then I would jump over to work and work my 8 or 9 hours. And then after that, we would all have dinner together. And then after dinner, it was fun time for mom and I. Are there games that your loved one loves? Mom always played solitaire, so we did that every day. And then after dinner, she loved puzzles. And what was fun about puzzling was we would do puzzles together and then we would listen to success stories. Books on tape were always something that she did. Now they're called audiobooks. So we would put an audiobook on that was inspiring, that was either talking about the illness or talking about something that she really enjoyed. And so it made us think outside the box and made us continue to explore other venues or opportunities. We also loved, is there a piece of food that your loved one really enjoys? When my husband's grandmother was in the hospital at the end of her life and she was on a very bland diet, she loved Bojangles fried chicken. I went to Bojangles and got her fried chicken and brought them to the hospital. And that wasn't on her list of approved items to eat, but hey, you might as well enjoy your final days. And gosh, she was so excited. She hid that fried chicken underneath her pillow so the nurse wouldn't know when she came in. But of course, the nurse just played along with it and it was super fun. But we did the same with my mom. Cancer loves and feeds on sugar. My mom was addicted to sugar and loved ice cream. And so we weren't going to take that joy away from her. Like, yeah, you could eat raw vegetables or steamed vegetables but that's not as exciting when you're feeling terrible. Sometimes you just want your comfort food. And that comfort food for her was ice cream. It was cold, it soothed her throat, it was something that she could easily eat and digest. And so ice cream it was. Are there TV shows? Maybe your loved one can't get up, and so sitting and listening. I know at the end of lives, sometimes vision and hearing are impaired. And so I know that we loved watching Escape to the Chateau, which is a British couple that moves to France and renovates a chateau. And one's an architect, one's an artist, and just a crafter and baker and chef. And so it's just such a cool, like home improvement, but really swanky show to watch. And so we watched Escape to the Chateau every day at different episodes. Maybe it wasn't the whole episode, just a little bit. But when mom lost her sight, she could still hear it. And she loved their accents. And so that was something that was really special, was we were able to have that together. We also created artwork together. So doing things with your hands is so important. And even if you as a caregiver only have 5 minutes to do it, can you do it together? Would that be fun? Or could you read a book together? Could you listen to their favorite music or their music album artist? They say when someone is near the end of their life, the last thing to go is their hearing. Continue to talk to them. And mom's final weekend, we played her favorite music. I laid with her and I said, "It's okay, mom. It's okay to let go." Um, It was really hard to have that conversation, but listening to the music and listening to Escape to the Chateau was just so fun. And then I'll leave you with one final happy memory that I have. Right? It's finding the daily joys, the little things, the light lifts. Mom was in the hospital on her last Mother's Day, and she always loved getting her nails done. And so obviously we were stuck there, couldn't go anywhere. And so I painted her nails, her hands and her toes. And the nurses were coming in and they're like, "What is that smell?" And I was like, "Oh, I just painted mom's nails." And mom's like, "Hey, check them out. Do you like them? I love this pink." And so it was just fun to have that time together. So is there something small? Maybe you can cut their hair or give them a shave or help them with some sort of small beauty ritual that maybe is just challenging for them to do in their final stage of life that you could really help with. Know that I'm thinking of you. Getting a diagnosis, a terminal diagnosis, is really challenging. And know that the body is so resilient. When you feel like you're breaking, your body is still there supporting you. So know that there are community members, there are specialists that you can lean on when you get a diagnosis, and people want to help. So reach out and let them help and let that community support and surround you. Take those adventures, get out that bucket list, check those things off, document it so that you have those memories, either written or videos. I love going back and listening to videos or watching videos that I have with my mom. You'll cherish those forever. It's fun, so fun to hear their voice. Taking pictures, laughing as much as you can, because it can be really dark and it can be really hard. So making light of the ups, downs, and all around can be helpful for the individual. So it's not all doom and gloom. And then finding your daily joys. What are little things that you can place? Maybe it's a fresh flower, just one that brings you joy, or a favorite game, a favorite show, a favorite song. Maybe it's a favorite piece of clothing or something that reminds you, a memento that reminds you of a loved one. We love Heart Rocks here. So anyway, sending so much love to you. I'm thinking of you as you're deep in the midst of caregiving, and know that you're not alone. There is a support network, and I am here cheering you on every step of the way. So I'm sending you so much love. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Giving Grief Grace. It would be such a gift if you could share this episode with someone and brighten their day. You never know what will happen. Subscribe to get a weekly dose of positivity, and while you're at it, please leave a review. May you be kind to yourself in the week ahead and give yourself grace. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.